Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Now today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to veer from my regular Bravo recaps. We're going to talk my obsession, which is Succession. I did not mean to make those words sound so like each other, but no, seriously, I am obsessed with Succession. Season 3 is back. This is episode 3, and I just wanted to talk about it because you guys, it's so good. I'm loving this season. So I thought, we'll try something different. Let's talk about it. Are you guys into this show too? If you're new here, because this brought you here, welcome. I'm Jen, and I recap a lot of Bravo shows. So check those out if you're into that. If not, we'll talk Succession, and let me know your thoughts below. So let's get into it. Okay, so this was season 3, episode 3, The Disruption. And you guys, this season has been on fire. So good. So much to talk about, so much happening with the Roy family, seriously. So personally, I didn't watch this show until probably season 2 was out, and then we found this show and binged watched season 1 and season 2, and I just absolutely fell in love. I think this is the most interesting storylines. I think the real estate porn is amazing. The over-the-top siblings are amazing. I just think it's so well written, and I truly am a huge fan of the show. So I'm excited to talk about it. So again, we're in season 3. It just started up. This is episode 3. So a lot happened this episode, and normally I'll go scene by scene and kind of talk about what happened. There were so many scenes in this episode. There's going to be parts that I'm going to have to skip over. Otherwise, we'll be here for 4 hours. And believe me, I could talk about this show for 4 hours. But right off the bat, we have Kendall. Kendall's at lunch. He's telling this reporter basically that Jerry's out of her depth. Now, if you remember, Jerry is CEO, where Shiv is acting president. The whole thing is the company's kind of, we started to see it more here, being investigated because of the stuff going on with the cruise ships. They never really specifically say what all happened. We do get some gory details, which I can't talk about, and only because the YouTube algorithm, you know how that goes, but there's some terrible things that happen to some of the females on boats. We'll just put it that way. Anyway, so Kendall, right off the bat, we see him at lunch telling this reporter Jerry's out of her depth, and then he starts backtracking and being nervous about it and being very concerned how he's coming across. He says he's happy in his headspace, and it's just funny because right off the bat, obviously he's not. I mean, he feels like he's in over his head, and we see that, right off the bat. So we have the opening, and then we go into Shiv. Again, she's acting president. It's for Waystar RoyCo. Roman is in there. Roman is my personal hero of the show. I do like Shiv, but Roman makes this show so good. I just love him. I love his one-liners. I love how disgusting he is and dirty and hilarious. And he's just got a different personality. And honestly, he's the Greek chorus for the show. I love it. So just a lot going on. So they're talking about Jerry's ideas. Again, Jerry's acting CEO. I do really like Jerry in the show. She's a little more grounded than some of the Roys are. And when Logan hears any of her ideas, he's pissed because he can't be the acting CEO anymore. And so he's saying, kill her ideas, basically. Logan's ideas, again, this is all how to handle this cruise thing because a lot of people, employees and everybody else have questions. So Logan's, they're pitching to Logan the slogan, "We get it." And it's just so, I think that's why I love this show. I've worked for these big corporations, and it's just corporate bullshit where it's it's word salad. They're not really saying anything by saying this stuff. So Roman brings up, really, you're going to say this in regards to the ladies on the cruise ship. And it's probably not the best way to go. Logan's telling people to F off, so he's about to get served, and he is so rich and powerful, he's refusing it. Didn't know that was a thing. We go over to Tom and Greg. I Tom is the one I love to hate. Tom is such an asshole, especially to Greg, but it's so fun to watch, and that actor is so good in that part. So he's being a jerk and telling Tom that his breath stinks. So basically he's punishing Greg because Greg is not taking the company lawyer. Now think back with me. I know it's jumping all around. This is how this show does, and if you're not super familiar with the show, let me remind you, Tom had Greg destroy a bunch of documents. Tom used to work in cruise departments. And we still don't know how much Tom knows because some weird stuff comes up later in the episode. But Greg kept some of the paperwork, and then Greg ended up passing some of it over to Kendall. And that's how Kendall was able to make that statement at the end of last season. Oh my gosh, you guys, at the end of last season, how good was that? We didn't know. We thought Kendall was going to take the fall, but nope. He ended up pushing Logan over a cliff here. Anyway, so Greg is asking if he's being punished. Tom's like, in the middle of an investigation? No. So he knows how to play a game. Tom tells Greg that tonight over a beer, let's make sure we all remember what happened in exactly the same way, aka let's get our story straight. You guys, I cannot wait for the storyline. I want to know what all comes out, what Tom knew, and how he was involved. If not directly, indirectly, I just want to know how that's going to play out. We see cracks in Tom and Shiv's marriage. I want to see how that's playing out. Last week, remember, Shiv kind of lied to him about where she was, and he knew it. And it's just a lot of strange things going on between the two of them. Shiv is talking to people. She thinks she can be best used to neutralize Kendall. So we see this coming up a lot in this episode, right? Kendall is talking about planting his flag in this office, whatever this means. Kendall is, again, an excellent actor, but he's so full of himself. So he thinks he can just waltz right in after basically setting the place on fire and planting his flag. That's just what he keeps calling it, planting his flag. So she is being sent to neutralize Kendall. Roman says he'll be a cheerleader for Logan. That's, I knew that wasn't going to go well because it's Roman. So then we cut over, we see Greg in the limo with Kendall. So there's this whole storyline about this fancy watch. And sometimes I'm just like, where are they going with this? And I'm sure it'll come back up later. But what I think they're showing is poor Greg, he just keeps getting screwed over by this family, right? He went with Kendall tonight instead of going to match stories with Tom because he told Tom he was going to get a watch. Tom had a really funny response, like, I'll buy you an effing watch, Greg. But Greg is holding this fancy watch. It's $40,000, we find out. And they kind of, so he thinks he's being purchased, this watch is being purchased for him. Well, they switch off of that and they start playing this game, Good Tweet, Bad Tweet, where Kendall has the group reading good tweets about him and bad tweets about him. Things like, we want to F Kendall, that's the good tweets, and bad tweets about his mental health and his addiction issues. Cut back over, again, so many scenes in this episode. We're at a fancy event, right? And Kendall's yelling, F the patriarchy. I mean, Kendall, he's just a lot, right? He sees Shiv and, oh, you guys, Nate was in this episode. I could not remember his name, and so I wrote the guy that Shiv used to bang. Remember, she was banging that guy that worked with the politician. It's Nate. And Tom threw him out of the wedding. I thought that was pretty funny. So they brought him back for some reason, so I'm wondering if he'll have more of a storyline this season. Kendall comes up. He's surprised that Shiv is there. He knows that she's been sent to handle him. Wants to know all about his dad. It is funny. Even when the kids are like pissed at the dad, they're obsessed, including Kendall. So they kind of go back and forth. There's definitely tension there. He thought she was going to be on his side, and she kind of seemed like she might have been for a little bit in the fight against Logan, but of course, as soon as Logan offered her the position, she jumped back on Team Dad. So I think that just created a rift between them. We see Roman in an interview. Again, I love Roman. I think he makes the show. Roman's in this interview. They're trying to ask for good memories with Logan. I mean, there's just not any. He makes up a story. Actually, he starts talking and walks out of the office, but we find out later in the episode he made up this story about fishing. And Logan's like, I don't remember taking you fishing. And he said, well, you didn't. It was Connor that took him fishing. And so he just used that story. Man, that's depressing, isn't it? So we do see Logan's wife once this episode, Marcia, however you say that. Marcia, I believe. And remember, last week was so interesting because there's a lot of, is she good, is she bad? I can't decide, probably both. And last week we see that she's kind of letting a different side of her show, we'll say. So we found out, of course, that Logan apparently hooked up with Holly Hunter's character. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. But, so everybody knows it, including her. She's demanding more money, basically, to stay with him. So I'm sure that'll come to a head soon. But, yeah, so we see her just very briefly. Logan and Shiv are at home, and Logan wants to know if, how it went with calming down Kendall. Is Kendall planning to come in? And Shiv's like, I don't think so. I think he gets it. And Logan is just playing this game with all his kids. It's like, if he needs them, he butters them up. But then otherwise he doesn't have a use for them. You know what I mean? And it's interesting to watch. It just adds such an interesting dynamic to the show. Again, Shiv is one of my favorites. She usually has a level head on her shoulders. She can bug me too. But, I thought this scene was interesting. So, moving on, Kendall and Greg at this party, it's $40,000 for the watch. So Greg is trying to say it's a gift. Kendall says, I was just hooking you up, meaning with this guy that sells watches, not buying one for you. So again, we see Kendall just, I don't know, totally full of himself. Okay, so this is where the show takes an interesting turn. He turns on this talk show, right? And it's that comedian who's so funny, Ziwe. She is the host of this talk show. And she basically lampoons Kendall in front of everybody. And she calls him a can of mayonnaise and a Prada suit, which I absolutely loved. Brings up telling Congress the investigation into his father was a witch hunt. Talks about his genetically inherited wealth and calls him a jackass. So she's completely right in everything she says about him. So he wants to go on her show, and they're all advising him no, and I'm just cringing so hard, but I also want to see him crash and burn, so I think that's fantastic. Okay, we go over to Shiv's home. Tom is completely effed up, drunk, maybe on pills, who knows, telling some awful story. You guys, I can't even think about it too hard because I'll get sick, but about dog eating pantyhose, you know what I'm talking about. Ew. Shiv talks to Tom about this investigation, and this is where I'm a little confused, and I want you guys to let me know if you understood this a little bit better than I did. Let me know in the comments what you thought was happening. So he talks about some John Doe going to jail, and he says he has this dumb idea that he wants to get out in front of it, go to Siobhan's dad, Logan, and offer himself up as the quote-unquote beating post. And then Shiv says, no, you're drunk. But then she kind of turns and starts saying, well, it's likely no one will go to prison. You'll bank gold with my dad. And I wrote in my notes, is he just testing her? This is very weird. Where was he going with this? What's happening? Do you think he knew more? I mean, I think he did know more because he knew to shred those documents, but did he know more? Was he helping to cover things up? I mean, in a sense, I guess, again, you could say he was because he knew about the documents and he wasn't doing anything either. So what's this about? This was just weird. I felt like maybe he was testing Siobhan to see what she'd say, but then he ends up going to Logan later and saying this exact same thing, that he'll basically be the fall guy. So very weird. Kendall is watching. He's back in bed. It's the next morning. He's watching that show again that Ziwe was, calling him out, and he ends up calling somebody on the phone saying he's gonna go into the office. It's like his button is finally pushed. He's just gonna go in. Make sure my office is ready. Go over to Tom at the news, and again, this is this weird scene with Logan where he's saying, I've been thinking about what you need right now, and I think I can help. If things go how they go, there might be no repercussions, but if there is, basically you can count on me. And even Logan is confused by this, and he's like, what's your angle, Tom? And he says, well, if I need to strategize, I'll be that guy and step up and go down. And he says, that's it? You don't want anything? And Tom says, no, I'm just there if you need me to be. So Logan does give him a smile, but I don't understand this. Is this to win Siobhan back over? Is this to win Logan over? I don't know, because he ends up disappearing after this and seemingly calling, I believe it was an attorney, to schedule an appointment. So very curious to see. I feel like they did this on purpose. They left it vague so that way they could go back into this later. So moving on, we see Logan have a very intense meeting with this lady, and it was really confusing at this part to know who this lady was. There's so many people in this show, but all I could gather is that she somehow works with or for the president, and he's being kind of rough in the interview, or in the discussion with her, and he's saying, basically, she ends up telling him the president feels like your coverage hasn't been truthful lately. And she's saying they have the same interest. Can you lower the temperature? Because he's being very aggressive. And he says, sure. Well, later they reference this meeting, and this might be the cause for the FBI coming in at the end of the episode, spoiler alert. But, this part blew my mind a little bit. Curious to see where they were going with this and what's going to come of this. And, we've seen him calling the president basically before, even to the point where that was the catalyst for Kendall being late for the takeover. So then we reach another wild point of the episode where Siobhan she's made to do this town hall and kind of address people's, they have a list of questions, right? And it's employees and people wanting to know what the heck's going on with this whole scandal with the cruise line. So she's prepping for this, and you guys, when that scene happens later, I die. That's crazy. But the meeting gets interrupted. Logan needs to see them in his office. We find out Kendall is on the way in. So Kendall's coming in. They're trying to figure out really fast about his immunity, how this is going to work. Logan wants him out of the building. Jerry's saying you have to allow him in. If you fire him, it'd be a PR disaster and all this. Kendall gets in. He can't get his key card to work. Amazing scene. Argument whether he's authorized to come up or not, and who can wave him in, and how that's going to go. Logan says bring him up the dumbwaiter, which is just the back freight elevator, which was priceless. Kendall ends up running into Tom. It's awkward. Kendall tells Tom he's in a tough spot. Tom says he's doing fine. Kendall says, I have no beef with you. Another life is possible, brother. So he goes into his office. He's locked out of his computer. Love this. He's, freaking out, saying the temperature is colder than he normally has it. He's just feeling the coldness from the family. Very intense scene. We see he tells one of his assistants is there, hey, I need you to go get a couple of things. And it's vague on purpose because holy crap, what comes next is amazing. This creepy security guard of Logan's comes in and says he's just checking. And he whispers very aggressively, I know you. So I know, again, that's sent by Logan. Amazing job. That actor was great. Okay, so back to Shiv. She's hosting this town hall, trying to answer questions. Feels like it's going to be just another corporate word salad. She starts talking in general terms, a senior executive at Waystar, and has made some very serious allegations. Okay, so she can't even get through much of her speech because all of a sudden a Nirvana song is blasted, and I can't even say the name of it because YouTube algorithm, but it's bad, and it refers back to the alleged assaults from the cruise line. So Nirvana song, crazy. She walks off pissed. They figured out, yep, it is Kendall that did it. So again, Kendall had sent his assistant out for a shopping list. He didn't say what it was. Now we know. It was loudspeakers to interrupt this event. So Logan says sorry, Pinky, to Siobhan, who's clearly pissed. Okay, Kendall arrives at Z-Way's show, right? And he thinks he's going to go on and talk his way out of things, and it's all going to be hunky-dory. You can imagine where I'm going with this. Okay, he wants to see the writers. He's being very pushy about it. So then we have Shiv, Roman, and Connor over at Shiv's place, and I love when the three of them get together. Connor, I think, is hilarious, like so painfully stupid and hilarious in this family. So Logan basically wants them to do a talk show together. She says it's gauche, they're not into it, but Shiv is pressing her brothers to release this statement about Kendall. She's pissed about what he did to her speech, so this is her kind of seeking her father's approval more, I guess, like, and lighting a fire, burning this bridge here. So putting out that he's a drug addict, he's a serial liar, he's an absentee father, and Roman says he won't sign the statement. It makes him feel unwell. And he says it's not in his best interest to do so. Again, I love how Roman talks. I think he's hilarious. Connor says he doesn't want to be a bitch, but his signature is valuable real estate. So she's like, well, then what do you guys want? And oh my God, the response was so funny. Anyway, she thanks them for their help as always because nothing happens, and she ends up having to release this statement on her own. Back to Tom and ATN News. He thanks everybody for being there. He's there to weather the storm. We go over to Kendall, kissing the writers' asses at this talk show, and he calls them smart and satirical, and I can take it, hurt me, and it's so awkward. The writers are like, what the hell's happening? Kendall's assistant shows up to show him something. They're vague on purpose, but we gather it's the statement that Siobhan released about him being a drug addict and absentee father and all those terrible things she said. He says it's nothing. She says, no, it's not nothing. The whole world is seeing it. So he's not sure if he should go on. He says, should we steer away from it? He ends up talking to the producer about it, and she's like, dude, it's weird if we don't mention it. We have to bring it up. And Kendall says, well, then I might have to bow out of this legally. She's like, we tape in 15. So again, this is Kendall just being a jackass and only thinking about himself. He agreed to this. Now he's pulling out. We have a very long beat of him panicking. He's not saying a word. It's just music. I think this actor is fantastic. He's doing a great job in this role. He sits down in a control room just completely curled up, and my heart did break for him. He's hiding. He doesn't want to be on the show, and I think he's upset about, as you would be, the letter that Shiv wrote. We go over to Roman. Logan walks in. This is where we talk about Logan brings up that fishing thing, and he says, nah, it's Connor that took him, so Logan's a shit dad. Back to Z-Way, she starts talking about Kendall ghosting her, and nothing I could say is as bad as the letter written by his sister. I'm concerned about the well-being of my brother. She brings up the rehab for multiple addictions, misogynistic rants, disordered thinking. And she says, and that's from his sister. She's the effing nice one of the family. And then you guys, in the most dramatic scene, we see Jerry running in saying the FBI is downstairs. Logan, in true Logan fashion, tells them to F off. And so we find out they have search warrants. And Jerry's like, you can't tell them to F off. That's not a thing. So they have search warrants. He says they're going to cooperate. We're cooperating. So they get the team together. And it's just like, you see these 20 to 30 FBI agents running in the door. Oh, you guys, I can't wait for the next episode. Tom's giving a speech at his news place. And he says, we'll survive this because of our values. Someone comes to whisper in his ear, tells him what's going on. He ends up having to announce, just so you know, federal agents are raiding the premises. It's all okay. Just be aware of that. Then we see Shiv watching the news on the FBI raid from home. We see Kendall watching the news of the FBI raid from that control room he's hiding in. And all of a sudden he starts smiling. And that's how the episode ends. You guys, it was so good. I love this show. So good. I love talking about it. Let me know your thoughts. Are you digging this season? Are you super into the show? Tell me where you think this is going. I mean, I'm open for any ideas. Like, what's going on with Tom? What's going to happen with Logan? What's going on with the family? They all have loose ends. I love it. That's the brilliance of the show. So many storylines, so many places to go with all this. And I'm super into it. But anyway, so that's it for the episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed the recap. I hope you guys have a fantastic evening. And I will talk to you again soon. If you want more recaps of this show, let me know in the comments below. If there's another show you're into, let me know that too. And if you're new here, welcome and check out my Bravo shows. I recap everything. So check them all out and I will talk to you guys again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.